I discovered one of my paintings in an art gallery. I'm an artist, not one you've heard of, though that may be changing soon. Being an artist is about creation, not about commercial success. I wouldn't mind getting the occasional acceptance mixed in with the constant stream of rejection, of course, but it's a process. A long process. They say that most artists don't become famous until after they're dead. I'd always hoped that I'd make it slightly before that. I graduated last year with an MFA from a relatively prestigious institution, along with a dozen other folks who convinced themselves that an insurmountable pile of debt was the best way to jump right into the starving artist lifestyle. We were, as mentioned, a small class, so we all went to each other's showings and were generally supportive. But I was only really friends with two of the others, Jared and Albina. The three of us ended up rooming together for the last year of the program, and we kept that going post-graduation. Having other folks in the house who look through the mail with the same mix of hope and trepidation is surprisingly helpful. Alone, it's easy to simply look at everyone else's filtered life and assume that you're the only one failing. When you come down in the morning to find your roommate crying in her cornflakes because the last 11 submissions haven't even gotten the courtesy of a rejection letter, it's a little easier to see that this is just how life goes sometimes. One of our favorite Friday night activities was going to local galleries to see who they had on display. There were a few reasons for this. One, it gave us a good idea of what they liked to show, helping us hone our own submissions. 2, it was very cathartic to be catty about what had been picked. 3, a lot of the galleries had free hors d'oeuvres and wine. I guess 4, we liked art. But honestly, it was hard to remember that sometimes. Sometimes looking at other people's finished canvases just made me angry. What made them able to decide that they were done? What made other people agree that they were worth hanging on the wall? What justified the astronomical price tags next to them? I'm not saying that this was anything but jealousy. I'm just saying that art and I are in a complicated relationship. About a month ago, we went to a newly opened gallery, Sway. It was the usual setup. Tall glass windows in front showcasing the art placed strategically on bright white walls within. It had the standard mix of oddly angled separators, allowing the patrons to wander slowly through the room and discover the paintings one at a time. Basically, it looked like every other gallery, but as it was a new opening, it had better wine than most. I was taking a casual tour of the perimeter when Jared appeared at my elbow. "Hey, congratulations," he said. "You weren't going to tell us? I can't believe you managed to keep this a secret." "Sorry, what?" "Oh, yeah, what, indeed." He steered me around several corners to where Albina was admiring a painting. "There's a new gallery opening. We should all go. No reason. Congrats." I stared at the painting in disbelief. It was one of mine. I was certain that I hadn't submitted to this gallery. I hadn't even heard of it until Albina had mentioned that it was opening. I would have remembered receiving a letter of acceptance, and I definitely would have remembered delivering a painting. None of these things had happened. And yet there my art was on the wall. It had my signature, and my name displayed next to it on a card. I knew the piece. I'd done it 2 or 3 years ago. It was good, very representative of my style at the time, but I'd moved on and had stopped trying to get it displayed a while ago. The last I had seen it, it was 6 or 7 canvases deep in a stack of pieces that I had nowhere else to put. It was fairly obvious that that was not the case now. The proof was on the wall in front of me. Albina and Jared were both praising me, so I just smiled and made vaguely humble comments. I must have submitted it. It wasn't like someone had broken into our apartment and stolen a single piece of my art. It was both confusing and concerning that I couldn't recall offering it to this gallery, but it was the only explanation that made sense. I was still trying to puzzle this out when another familiar piece caught my eye. I nudged Jared. "Oh, so I'm the one keeping secrets?" He raised an eyebrow at me, and I pointed across the floor. His eyes widened as he saw the same thing I had. One of his paintings neatly framed and prominently displayed. "I didn't even know you'd finished that one," I said. "I swear I saw you working on it like 2 days ago." "Yeah," he said, sounding a bit lost. "I was." "How'd you get the gallery to take it before it was even done?" "Oh my god, look," said Albina. In the back corner of the gallery, occupying an entire corner, was a small collection of Albina's work. It was expertly curated. I'd watched her develop her style for years, and the 8 paintings chosen here perfectly encapsulated the entire range. Clusters of people kept gathering in front of them, and I saw more than one slip off to speak to the gallery owner about purchasing a piece. "Albie, these are amazing," I told her after we finally managed to get close enough to see them all properly. Some of these are absolute perfection. I don't think I've even seen all of them." "Seriously, when did you do all of this?" asked Jared. "Some of these are definitely new. Unless you have a secret studio you've been hiding from us?" He narrowed his eyes at her in mock suspicion. She laughed, shoving him lightly, but behind her smile I saw the same confusion that I'd heard in Jared's voice, the same that I'd felt myself. None of us knew that our work was going to be on display here. Something was very odd. We didn't talk about it then. Oddity or not, our art and our names were on display, and there were free drinks to toast with. We refilled our glasses, congratulated each other effusively, wandered the gallery for a bit, and then did it all again. By the time we were walking home, all concerns had vanished from all of our minds. We were successful. We could figure out how and why later. The next morning, Albina was dead. I woke up late with a hangover. Jared woke up later, looking even rougher than I did. There was nothing resembling breakfast anywhere in the apartment, so we sat and sipped our coffee silently. Albina's door was open, and I think we both hoped that she'd gone out to get bagels or something and that we would shortly be provided for. She wasn't answering texts, and Jared and I were starting to get concerned when there was a knock at the door. We opened it to find a policeman asking if we knew Albina Shevchenko, and if we had contact information for her family, and if we could come identify the body. It had been a hit and run. She'd been dead by the time witnesses had gotten to her. No one had seen the car's license plate. The police didn't even pretend that there was a chance of justice. They gave us her effects, including what remained of a bag of bagels. Somehow that was the worst part for me. She'd gone out to get something to celebrate with us. It made us complicit. At the funeral, the priest spoke about her giving spirit and her wonderful personality, but most of all he spoke about her massive artistic talent. He went on at length about what she could have created if she had not had her span cut short. The entire gathering nodded along with him. Jared and I exchanged looks. It wasn't that he was wrong. She was amazing, and eventually the world would have known about her. It's just that hadn't happened yet. The 3 of us were, as far as we could tell, the only ones really aware of how much potential we had. If everyone knew this about her, why had she been scraping by in a dingy apartment with us, trying to get enough money together to buy more art supplies? "We should go back to Swig," Jared said after the funeral. "The gallery owner probably doesn't know. We'll need to get her pieces back before he trashes them when she doesn't respond. Our trip was unnecessary." The gallery owner had Albina's obituary blown up to large size and prominently displayed next to a tremendous collection of her work. It covered entire walls of the gallery, each piece with an explanatory card discussing when and why she had painted it. Where the prices had been on the cards, every single one was marked sold. I was looking around for the owner to ask where he was sending the money when Gerard grabbed my arm. "Look," he said, half whispering. Arranged in a neat circle on one wall were a dozen of his paintings. "I don't know that I want to be on display here," he said. He sounded frightened. "Then take them back. They're your pieces." "Are they?" He pointed. "I never finished that one. That's how I wanted it to look, but I couldn't get it right. I swear, I never completed it. And there, I never painted that. I thought of it. I knew it in my head. But I had never put brush to canvas for it. Not even to start it. How could they have any of this? How could anyone?" His voice was rapidly rising toward hysteria. "Hey, let's get you out of here," I said, putting an arm around his shoulders. "We'll come back tomorrow and get them taken down if you want. We're all running on fumes right now." Privately, I thought again about the piece that Sway had of mine. I'd never gotten around to looking for it at the apartment. Things had been a blur since Albie's death. I wondered how this gallery had so much of our stuff. I wondered what else had been taken. Back at home, Jared rummaged through his artwork, hunting for something. "See?" he said finally, holding up a canvas. "I told you, it isn't done." He was holding up something that could have been an early attempt at one of the pieces we'd seen in the gallery. It was the same general idea, but the colors weren't right, and the composition didn't gel. Also, as he'd said, it was clearly incomplete. Parts of the canvas still showed through in some areas. It wasn't what was hanging on the walls. "I told you," he repeated. "How can they have art that I never finished?" I tried to get him to calm down. I sat him down on the couch and poured him a drink. "We'd go back in the morning," I said. "We'd find the owner. We'd sort all of this out. It was a problem for tomorrow, not for this evening. Not right after a funeral." I thought I'd gotten him to agree with me. I poured us both another drink. Somewhere in the middle of that one, I fell asleep on the couch. When I woke up, Jared was gone. Just one of those things, the police said. Wrong place at the wrong time. He'd been mugged. His credit cards and phone were gone. He'd bled out in the street. He was almost halfway to Sway. I went there to get his art taken down, like he'd wanted. They'd already expanded the collection. His photo smiled down at me from the main wall, next to an obituary lauding his talent. His bold innovation, his novelty. The rest of the gallery was plastered with his work. I recognized some of the paintings he'd been rifling through at the apartment the previous day. Most had already been sold. And on the back wall, in a small but well-lit section by themselves, hung 6 of my paintings. The one that I'd seen the first night was there, along with 2 others I was particularly proud of. If I'd been asked to pick 3 pieces to best represent who I was and who I had been as an artist, those might have been them. The other 3 bore my signature, but I did not paint them, not yet. Like Jared, I knew the subject matter in them. I had thought of them, conceived them, and even made some attempts to put them to canvas, but they had never come out like I'd imagined. I'd set them aside to try again later, when I had better supplies, when I was better. Yet here they hung, complete and perfect, exactly as I had pictured them. It was a triumph of my craft. It was beautiful to see what I could become, given enough time. It's just too bad that I don't have it. Most artists don't become famous until after they're dead.